When you think about rural America, what's the first image that pops into your head? Probably something pretty specific, right? Well, today we're going to see why that single picture is just incomplete. We're going to uncover the many, many different stories that are really shaping rural America today. And this quote from Federal Reserve Governor Barr, it just nails it. After traveling all over the country, from the Mississippi Delta to reservations way up in Montana, one thing became crystal clear. There's absolutely no single, one-size-fits-all story for rural America.
And really, that's the whole point. You can't possibly grasp what's truly going on from behind a desk in Washington. To see the future, to understand the real challenges and the incredible opportunities, you've got to walk the ground. You have to talk to people, the farmers, the small business owners, the community leaders.
All right, so for our first section, let's just dive right in and see how wildly different these stories can be. We're going to look at what's actually happening on the ground.
Just look at this. It's a completely different world depending on where you are. Down in the Mississippi Delta, you've got communities cleverly reinventing old railroad towns for tourism. Then go up to tribal lands in Montana, like the Flathead and Blackfeet reservations, and the struggles are totally different, from the incredible difficulty of getting a home mortgage to major hurdles in healthcare and education. Then you head to Nebraska, and farmers are just wrestling with this massive uncertainty. Their costs, their labor, everything. It's not one problem, it's 100 different problems.
So even with all that diversity, you do start to see some patterns. We can actually group the biggest headwinds into three big overlapping categories. It's kind of like a triple threat that so many of these communities are up against. So here's how it breaks down. First, you have what we'll call intrinsic hurdles, stuff that's happening from within, like changes in population. Second, you've got external shocks, sudden, big things like a change in trade policy. And third, there are these massive, slow-moving, long-term shifts like the explosion of artificial intelligence. Let's dig into each one.
So threat number one, these internal built-in challenges. This chart says it all, really. The population of people 65 and over in rural counties shot up by more than 2 million in just about a decade. What does that mean? It means you have a smaller and smaller prime-age workforce trying to support a much, much larger group of retirees. And check this out. 86% of the rural counties that actually grew recently, a staggering 86% of that growth came from people moving in, not from new births. That tells you everything. For so many of these places, attracting new people isn't just a nice-to-have, it's absolutely critical for survival. Okay, on to threat number two, external shocks. Trade is a perfect example. In just one recent period, U.S. soybean exports to China dropped by 38%. If you're a farmer and that's your market, a drop like that isn't some abstract number. It's an immediate, massive blow to your livelihood. And as if that wasn't bad enough, at the exact same time, geopolitical conflicts sent fertilizer prices spiking by 55%. So, you've got your market shrinking while your costs are exploding. That's what an external shock feels like on the ground. You're getting squeezed from both sides. And finally, let's look at a long-term shift. The rise of AI and these giant data centers popping up in rural areas. It's a real double-edged sword. On the one hand, sure, you might get some tax revenue and new infrastructure. But on the other, these things are incredibly thirsty for energy and water, putting a huge strain on local grids. And it's not at all clear how many permanent, good-paying jobs they actually bring. Okay, so we've laid out the challenges, and yeah, it sounds pretty tough. But this is where the story gets really good, because it's all about how these communities are fighting back. So let's dive into two amazing stories of resilience and total reinvention. Take DeWitt, Arkansas. After their main employer, a big shoe factory, shut its doors, the town could have just withered away. But it didn't. Instead of trying to attract another single giant employer, they did something smarter. They leaned into what they already had. Great natural areas for hunting and fishing, and they built a whole ecosystem of small, local businesses around it. They went from dependency to diversity. And you see a very similar story playing out in Thomas and Davis, West Virginia. These were old coal and timber towns that totally reinvented themselves. They built a brand new economy centered on what makes them special: arts, culture, and their incredible outdoor recreation. But how? How did they pull that off? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is an organization called a CDFI. That stands for Community Development Financial Institution. Now, you can basically think of them as specialized financial groups that step in and work in places that traditional banks often overlook because they're focused on community impact, not just profit. And this is the really key part, they do so much more than just lend money. A single CDFI might be a small business lender,
a grant maker for artists, a coach for new entrepreneurs, and most importantly, a connector. They're the ones who bring together federal grants, private investment, and local needs. They're the catalyst, the glue that holds it all together.
And that success story in West Virginia, it really hints at a much bigger idea. It's not just about one hero organization saving the day. It's about a whole playbook that's built on one thing: partnership.
You want to see what that partnership looks like in action? How about this? 400%. In one region, a collaboration between local CDFIs and the USDA helped increase home mortgages on tribal trust lands by 400%. That's not just a statistic. That's a life-changing number for so many families. And it only happened because different groups decided to work together. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? The secret sauce isn't one ingredient. It's the mix. It's when public money, private investment, and philanthropic grants all get pointed in the same direction. That is the formula for real, lasting success. So where does a big institution like the Federal Reserve fit into this? Well, they're a key part of this whole support ecosystem. They do it by having teams on the ground listening to local voices, by doing the data-driven research that helps create smart policy, and by using tools like the Community Reinvestment Act, which encourages banks to invest back into their local communities. So, after seeing all the challenges and this incredible resilience, what's the big takeaway? What's the path forward from here? Well, the bottom line is this: these success stories, this community vitality, it doesn't happen by accident. It's not magic. It takes deliberate, sustained effort. It takes coordination between a lot of different partners, and it takes real focused intention, year after year. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. We've seen over and over again that the creativity, the drive, the ingenuity, it's already there in these communities. So, if that local ingenuity is the engine for renewal, the real question for all of us is, how do we best provide the fuel?